Black Cyc is an interesting developer. They're known for their horror guru titles with compelling stories. However, only one of their titles, Sadistic Blood, has been translated in English. That is, until now, with the release of Gore Screaming Show. Now that's a title that immediately draws attention and intrigues people. It was known in Western VN circles as early as the mid-2000s, being one of the first to be hailed as Kamige. A few fan translations were attempted, but none of them went anywhere. Thanks to Just USA, Gore Screaming Show is finally available in English. It was one of my most anticipated titles of the year, but how does it hold up? How much gore is there at the Screaming Show? Gore Screaming Show was originally released in 2005 and immediately became a cult classic. It was directed and illustrated by the extremely talented Ueda Mitao, who you may recognize as holding those same positions in Dead and Aegis and Sadistic Blood. The scenario was written by Kusakabe Matsuri, a female writer who was working at Black Cyc at the time and is known for mostly writing boys' love stories. Mitao was apparently responsible for writing the H scenes as well. The story follows Jino Kyoji, who has returned to his hometown after moving away 3 years ago due to a certain incident. There, he tries to re-establish his connections with his former friends and live a normal life. However, he has frequent run-ins with Yuka, a strange girl with an obsession with him. Yuka and her pet monster Gore Screaming Show threaten those around Kyoji and the town itself, sending Kyoji's normal life into madness. The story actually has a somewhat slow start, with it focusing on establishing the characters and the relationship with Kyoji. The first few hours are about Kyoji's school life, with some spooky moments sprinkled in. This approach is important for getting the audience invested in the characters and setting up the story. I found myself enjoying these mundane scenes of characters hanging out, and I was kept engaged through it all. I think the common art is very well paced, nothing felt unnecessary or like a scene was dragging on for too long. After a certain point, the stories of character arcs branch off and it becomes more of a horror thriller. Despite the name, the horror is more focused on psychological horror than it is on gore. Yuka preys on the girl's flaws and insecurities, using it to torment them. The horror is surreal and strange. He uses Gore's reality warping abilities to great effect, causing the audience and the characters to question how much of what they see is real. Another thing I found interesting is how Kyoji himself is never really in physical danger because Yuka loves him and doesn't want to harm him, instead going after those close to him out of jealousy. While Kyoji might not be at risk of dying, having his loved ones threatened and having to witness these horrific events takes a mental toll on him. Of course, there are some gruesome guru scenes, but majority of these are in the bad endings, which you kinda have to go out of your way to see. If you stick to good endings, there's only one scene that's truly gory in the main story, so it's something that's approachable to people that aren't into Guru. Personally, even the bad endings didn't affect me much. They were interesting to see, but I've seen more extreme things. Onto the characters. Kyoji is our main protagonist. He's a brash and impulsive young man, which often gets him into trouble. It seems like his short-tempered personality can bother people, but I liked him. It's intentional that he's immature and has to grow throughout the story. The thing that endeared me to him early on is a scene where he gets into a fight with the local delinquent, Sadashima. While outnumbered, he does not hesitate to beat down Sadashima for bad-mouthing his friend, rationalizing that he only needs to defeat the leader to get the lackeys to back off. He gets his ass kicked anyway, but I respect him for trying, and a scene that happens later because of this is excellent as well. It kind of reminded me of Camille from Zeta Gundam in a way, and how they're both quick to anger. The only problem I have with him is how he doesn't have a character sprite or voice acting. It's strange, they gave a teacher without that much importance a sprite, but not the main protagonist. It was probably a stylistic decision to get the reader more immersed in the story. Personally, I like it when you can see the appearance of the main character. I think seeing their various expressions can make scenes more impactful. It can be hard to get too invested in a character if you don't even know what they look like. It's a shame that Kyoji's face is only shown in 2 CGs in the game. He's also prone to making some silly decisions, but making bad decisions is a common thing in horror movies. Can't exactly fault him for that. Despite this, I think he's a solid protagonist overall. Kazuyagi Akane is Kyoji's childhood friend that he's become estranged from because of an incident in his 3-year absence. He's tomboyish and strong-willed. Kind of standard, but is likable. The rest is neat because they save all the H scenes for the end and the entire final stretch of it is really cool. Namiki Aoi is a reserved girl that's friends with Akane. She is the obvious best girl in the game. She's basically Rei Ayanami, but she listens to death metal. Absolutely perfect character that was made to appeal to me, specifically. He has the most natural feeling relationship with Kyoji. They bond over their shared passion for metal music, and they go to a metal concert together. Their scenes together during the common route were a delight to read. They have great chemistry. Her route is about her depression, self-loathing, and toxic relationship with Akane. Her route was my favorite to read. It got eerie and surreal. The only problem with it is how Aoi is absent for a large chunk of it. It makes sense for the story, but I miss seeing her, which was the intention. It ends in a really satisfying way. Fun fact, Aoi means blue in Japanese, while Akane is red in Japanese. They got a bit funny with the names. Gave them contrasting colors and personalities. It's kind of clever. Misono Kika is the third heroine and the honor student. They went to the same school as Kyoji during his 3-year absence, but there's some history between them. Her route is about her repressed sexual desires that she tries to hide to maintain her image as a perfect student. I thought there was some interesting commentary on how women aren't really allowed to express their sexuality the same way men do, but it overall felt like the weakest route in the game. Not bad by any means, and there's some creepy stuff towards the end. I felt less invested in it than the other routes. Ika herself isn't that interesting, and doesn't have as strong a dynamic with Kyoji as the others. It doesn't help that it felt like her route had the most age scenes because of the nature of the theme of the route. Saitama Yamiko is Kyoji's guardian and distant relative. She's a great character, often very playful, but she knows when to get serious. Her route is fantastic and is a story about atoning for past sins. I was surprised at how she wasn't sexualized much. She only really has one age scene, and the way it's framed in the story is unique. Yuka is the girl people seem to love the most, and she serves as an antagonist for much of the game, until her own route. As an antagonist, she's wonderful. The way she combines being cute and terrifying is awesome. She has a strong presence whenever she's on screen. However, her route tries to make her sympathetic by showing her backstory and motivations. Unfortunately, this didn't land for me because her backstory doesn't nearly justify any of the horrific actions she takes during the story. It makes her extremely petty. I get the point of it, but the clingy yandere personality is something that bothered me. It's just something I'm not a fan of, but it was at least sensible for an antagonist you're supposed to overcome. Also, the way the relationship between her and Kyoji develops in her route felt bizarre to me. It's like Kyoji was being brainwashed. I've come around to her since finishing her route. She's fine, and I can see why people love her. Her design is perfect, and the way her route ends is pretty satisfying. Gore Screaming Show is the character the game gets its name from, and he's incredible. Actual best boy. He's this creature that speaks in a nonsensical way and is loyal to Yuka. He contributes a lot of the black humor to the story and is always entertaining. He reminded me a bit of the It creature, except he feeds on horniness instead of fear. Gore actually has some depth and has one of the more emotional scenes in the story. As for other characters, there's Yatsuki Yoshiki, who's tied with Aoi as my favorite character in the story. He's pure 2000s cool, the trench coat and sunglasses are immaculate. Of course, he's got a score to settle with Gore and Yuka, and he is the one best equipped to deal with them. His relationship with Kyoji is interesting because it plays out in a similar way in every route, with Kyoji initially disliking him, then forming a respect for him. I always enjoyed the way it was handled. He's consistently amazing in every route and I love him. Maki Shinta is Kyoji's other childhood friend and the typical best friend in a visual novel character. I felt more could have been done with him. He shows up quite a bit in the common route, but takes a back seat when the character routes start, only being somewhat relevant in Yuka's route. It's a shame. He's cute, and with the writer working on BL before, I think a gay route with him could have been interesting. Tadashima Fumiya is the last notable character. Another character I felt they could have done more with. He's a local rich kid and a total bastard in most of the routes. It's hinted that there's more to him and that his shitty parents are the reason he's like that, but I wish it was explored more. I thought they were building up to a redemption arc or something for him in Yumiko's route, but it doesn't happen and he just disappears for most of the plot. He still works as a guy you're supposed to hate, and I enjoy him in that sense. Overall, good cast. I think Kusakabe Matsuri did an excellent job with the character writing. Her female perspective made the female characters and their flaws feel more real. The choices system is surprisingly clever and well thought out. In the common route, you can gain or lose affection points depending on your decisions, which are represented by different colored hearts. It's cute. You might think that getting onto a heroine route is as simple as always raising the affection of your chosen girl, but that isn't necessarily always the case. Sometimes a balance is required, and treating the other girls badly while focusing on one can lead you to a bad ending. Not something hugely mind-breaking like Muramasa's route system, but it was more nuanced than I expected. Ueda Mitao's artwork is as stunning as ever. It might not look quite as polished as his recent output in Dead and Aegis, but the CGs are superb. You can tell how much they've improved as an artist comparing the two, showing how his style has always been charming. The big expressive eyes are something I've always appreciated about his designs and are very present here. The music is equally impressive. It goes a long way in selling the atmosphere. In particular, I loved Avengers Requiem, which is basically Yoshiki's theme. It's melancholic and beautiful, perfectly fitting his character. The combination of the guitar and piano hits different when you learn more about his backstory. Then there's the opening song, Distorted Pain by the band Denkare, who have done the openings for several other Black Cyc titles as well. It's insane how good it is, absolutely perfect for the metal theme the game goes for. In short, I adore the game's aesthetics, in both art and music. Gore Screaming Show is ultimately a coming-of-age story, as Kyoji realizing his limitations and immaturity. Yumiko is the most mature character in the story, despite her often acting flippantly. Yuka shows the danger of being unable to advance or grow, being mentally stuck in the past. Yoshiki is ironically the same way. Despite Kyoji looking up to him, he's someone that hasn't been able to move on or mentally grow since a traumatic incident happened to him. In conclusion, Gore Screaming Show is pretty awesome. It's a flawed story in some ways, but I had a lot of fun with it. The aesthetics are immaculate, and it has characters that'll stick with me. The new wave of death neko metal is here. I'm so glad it was translated, and it lived up to my expectations. It gets a solid recommendation from me. If I was forced to give it a number rating, I'd give it a strong 7 out of 10. I really hope this sells well so we can get more classic Black Cyc titles translated. There's some cool titles I want to read, like Gun Katana, Non-Human Killer, which is also a first-person shooter sometimes, or Min Dead Blood, which is about vampires. Extravaganza, Mushi Maderu Shoujo, is probably at the top of the list for most wanted Black Cyc translations, because apparently it is bug kamige. Anyway, please give Gore Screaming Show a shot. It's definitely something worth experiencing. You can find the game on the JAS store and on Steam. However, if you get the Steam version, know that it's a heavily censored and incomplete version, having only half of Akane's route. You need to get the free patch off the JAS website to get H scenes and rest of the story. That's all for this review. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching.